Next from Springfield, Carol Portman, president of the Taxpayers Federation of Illinois, addresses members of the State University's Annuitants Association with a presentation titled Illinois Illustrated, a visual guide to taxes and the economy. This runs about 50 minutes.
All right, thank you, Linda. I will try to stay within the 2-hour time limit that Linda gave to me, because taxes are kind of complicated. But I've been doing this, as she said, for now a couple of years, so I'm better at shortening my speech. And I asked these guys, give me the high sign when I've hit my timeline. So I've got the slides. Oh wait, I've got the remote, so I can do this, so I don't have to lean over. All right, the booklet that you're going to be getting tries to distill into a series of pictures. Some of them are on here, and I'm going to show some overhead. A picture of what Illinois' economy is like, how do we compare to other states, and then how our tax structure compares to other states and over time to ourselves over time. And then we dive a little bit deeper into each of the major taxes in Illinois, the income taxes, the business taxes, sales taxes, and property taxes specifically. We try to do it in pretty colors and pretty pictures so that it's not boring, especially after a big meal like this. It's important that you have bright colors and large pictures. At least it is for me. But we also try not to dumb it down too much, right? I mean, and that's one of the frustrating things with taxes. They are complicated. And I know that you all hear this too all the time. People try to issue these little sound bites and explain things in a way that usually in an advocacy way tries to explain or emphasize their particular point of view. And so they pull out the data points that they think help their argument, and they oversimplify it, and as a result, you don't see the whole picture. And what we were trying to do with this booklet is not advocate for any particular end result, not to try to say our taxes are too high or our taxes are too low or we spend too much here or we spend too much there. That really wasn't the point of the booklet. The point of the booklet is just to kind of provide a snapshot, and we did some slicing and dicing of data in different ways. And one of the things I'm going to talk about as I go through, and I'm probably not even going to talk about all the slides on here because I am kidding about the 2-hour thing. You can use data in different ways, and you can look at things in different ways, and depending on how you're looking at it, you can come up with very different results, right? And that didn't make much sense when I said it here, but I think you'll see what I'm talking about as I go through the slides. Linda already talked about what our organization is, and so I'm going to skip through this first bit. We've been around for a while. We were formed when property taxes were pretty much the only tax. They were the biggest and most important tax in the state. That was what everybody hated. Some things haven't changed over time. Because everyone still hates property taxes. I don't know, maybe y'all love them, but most people hate property taxes. We do have some other taxes now in our state's arsenal. In the 40s, we didn't even have a state income tax. The sales tax was brand new. People hadn't yet developed a real good hatred for it yet. And so it was property taxes. And the problem was that taxes weren't being assessed the same from county to county or township to township. And multi-state and taxpayers who operated in more than one jurisdiction were getting frustrated. Am I not loud enough?
Not loud enough.
All right. You know what? Should I just clip this on here? Because that way I'm more likely to wander. No?
Can't wander.
All right. I will stand here.
Take it off.
Oh, I'll hold it. Yeah, what the heck? I'll talk. Oh, there I am. I'll be more like Oprah, right? Or who was it? Was it David Letterman that used to have the guy that would talk like this? What's going on here? And then, all right. So anyway, we do research on a lot of topics, and we talk about a lot of things, and we do traditionally do pretty deep dives. I know that Ralph Martiri was here earlier today talking about, and we just did a project with them on the sales tax and whether or not it was a good idea to expand the base of the sales tax to consumer services. I suspect Ralph talked a little bit about that with you. That's usually the kind of thing we do, and if you saw the paper that came out, it's very technical and lots of words and not a few pretty pictures, but this chart book that you're going to get has lots of pretty pictures, and so we put a few of them in slides. We started talking about Illinois and how we compare, our economy compares with the rest of the country. And so this bar graph shows the first 5 bars are the 5 biggest states in the country: California, New York, Texas, Florida, and then Illinois. We're 5th largest. That's a good thing. Yay us, right? We're big, we're diverse, we have lots of people. This is based on, and this number is measuring state GDP, the gross domestic product, the overall economy of our state. It doesn't think about how many people we have. It doesn't think about how much wealth we have in our land values or whatever. This is just this overall state economy and the state GDP. It's interesting to note there, you can see, oops, that's not the right button. There we go. Well, that doesn't really help very much. Anyway, over to the right on the green are some of our neighboring states. And frequently we compare ourselves with our neighbor states. How's Indiana do this? What's Wisconsin doing? What's Iowa doing? Whatever. And that's a useful comparison because they're physically and geographically close, that's the same thing, close to us. But in other ways, they aren't close to us. We are more than twice as big as any of them when you're looking at state GDP. And so sometimes that comparison can skew things a little bit. And so that's just something to keep in mind when you're looking at numbers. I think that our numbers are fair and that what we're telling you is an even-handed presentation. But just to remember, when people are presenting you with data, you really need to think about, is this a fair comparison? Are we really looking at apples to apples here? Or is it apples to oranges, or is it apples to pickup trucks? Because those can be very telling when you're looking at the data. This one, there are lots of pages in this book, and you're going to be able to, I know you can read. So I'm not going to really go through each of these slides slide by slide and talk about each of them, even the ones that are excerpted into this presentation. But this is a piece about personal income per capita. So this isn't state GDP anymore, this is personal income per capita. It's comparing us not to other states, only to our neighbor states. And instead of doing it in absolute dollar terms, it's doing it compared to the US average. So that 100% straight line across the middle is the US average. And you can see in 1929, which is a few years ago, our state was way at the top and Kentucky was way at the bottom, and our other neighbors were sort of in the middle. And over the succeeding years, we came closer and closer together. Now, this is in relative terms. This doesn't mean that our personal income has shrunk in Illinois. It just means that throughout the country, and not just in our little region, we've become more similar. The states, there's not the great disparity from the wealthiest states to the poorest states in our country. But if you looked at this, you could say, oh my God, Illinois is losing ground because Kentucky is gaining ground. What the heck happened here? Because if you're not thinking about how the data is presented or what is going on here, you can be misled. And so, again, I'm just kind of pointing out some of these little data points in here to remind you when you're looking at stuff and when people are pitching you a particular point of view, you really want to think about what is it they're telling me and what is it they think I'm supposed to get out of this, and is that really a fair conclusion to come to? That's unemployment. Unemployment sucks, but we know that. Here's a slide from our the tax chapter, the second chapter, and we start talking about our state's overall tax structure and how does that compare to the national average. And the big pie here is Illinois, and then the smaller pie is the national average, and each slice of the pie is the relative proportion of that particular tax's total. So in Illinois, again, the big pie is Illinois, and the small pie is the national average. And you can see we got the same general colors and the same general sizes. That means we have in Illinois used more or less the same toolkit of tax tools that most states do. We have an income tax. The individual income tax is the red pie slice. We have a property tax. That's the big green slice. Sales tax is the mid-level blue over on the left. You can see from here that our property tax pie slice is a little bit larger than the national average. It's 38% up there. Again, you'll have books and you can actually read the numbers when you get the books. But and this is from 2012, which is when our income tax rates were a little bit lower. So the income tax slices were a little bit bigger when our income tax rates were up, and the property tax slice was actually small. So this 38% is a little less than our typical slice. Normally in Illinois, property taxes make up about 40% of the typical taxpayer's state and local tax burden. And so is it any wonder we all hate property taxes, right? It's a big, huge honking bite out of your tax pie. And speaking of pies, though, this doesn't say Illinois has a lot of taxes compared to the national average. This is just saying of the total amount of taxes, here's how big the property tax pie slice is. So again, you could look at this and say, oh God, Illinois has a lot of taxes. Well, maybe we do, maybe we don't. You can't tell that from here. Other people obviously will tell you that, but that's not the point here. We're just saying, compared to other states, we have more property taxes. I'm sure here about states like Texas and Florida that don't have an individual income tax, their pie slice or chart would look very different, right? Because they would not have a red slice in their pie at all, because there is no individual income tax in those states. Most states did not have the good sense to plop themselves down over a big honking oil field like Texas did. So they can raise taxes by taxing oil. We can't. Florida similarly had the foresight to locate themselves in a beautiful vacation place. Not that Illinois is bad, but we don't draw the same tourism levels that Florida does. So we can't tax tourists, we have to tax ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why we have individual income taxes, because we didn't think ahead. So anyway, moving on, the rest of our book then dives deeper, as I said, into each of the major tax categories we have in our state. The one that drives everyone a little bit crazy because it makes you mad. Well, what tax doesn't, I guess? The individual income tax is what is the next chapter in the book, and the next few slides in my thing. This is going back to, this is individual income taxes on a per capita basis. So it's not based on state GDP, and this is comparing Illinois, which is the orangey yellow line, to all states. And you can see through this time period, which is from 77 to 2012, on average, our taxes were less, our individual income taxes were lower than the national average until the very end of this bar chart. It's not a bar chart, it's a line chart, whatever. We went way up, and because that's when our income tax rates were temporarily increased. So of course we went up. We went way over the national average. This data comes from the Census Bureau, and it takes them a while to get it from every single state. So it takes a couple of years for the data to come out. It will be very interesting to see if over time, the next few years while our rates were that high, did the rest of the country start catching up to us? Or did we stay above, like this dramatic increase makes it look? And now this year, our tax rates have fallen back most of the way. And if it stays down, will we stay, where do we compare? It's going to be interesting to see how this line changes over the next few years. There's 2 pages in the book that look like this. There's one of the big graphs over there too. What this does, and it's kind of fun, but it brings the tax picture, individual income tax picture, down to a very granular level. And we picked 6 different fact patterns, families or single people, whatever, tax returns, households, I guess would be the best way. And so what would their, and we gave them incomes based on national averages and various things. And then what would their tax liability be? And then for Illinois and for federal. And the other page in the book, it's not in my handout yet, but you'll get it, does that same thing for our neighboring states. How much do they pay in Iowa? How much would they pay in Wisconsin? How much in Kentucky, and so on. And it's pretty interesting to see. And one of the things that there's the big orange line is the amount of tax actually paid. The line under it is the rate, the effective rate that person pays. How much tax did they pay compared to their taxable income? And you can see there that the tax rate for most folks is right around the statutory rate, 3.5%, 3.4%, 3.7%. This is assuming the 2015 income tax rate of 3.75% is what's applied. It's always a little less because there's personal deductions and there's a few things like that. But you can see it's a lot less for the retired couple because Illinois does not tax retirement income. Unlike the federal government, which taxes some Social Security and all withdrawals from IRAs and pension income and 401k income when you pull it out, like this is news to you guys, Illinois does not tax it. The funny thing is, did you see that study, that survey that someone did last fall, and they asked a bunch of retirees in Illinois, do you think you're paying Illinois income tax on your retirement income? And like 80% of them said yes. And then they said, do you think it's too high? And more than half of them said yes again. So more than half of the retirees in our state think that 0 is too much tax to pay on their retirement income. You tell politicians like that, and they're like, what the hell, we might as well retire them. They're already pissed about it because they already think they're paying too much in tax. So we might as well make the fact match their perception. So I'm just warning you. Anyway, so my next slide actually beats on that same drum a little bit. You hear people talk, and Linda will tell you, my predecessor hated the L word, loophole. A tax loophole is a name that someone gives to a particular tax code provision when I want more money coming in the door to my government favorite pet project, and I want that money to come from someone else. So I'm going to say they've got a loophole. I'm going to raise taxes on them, and that way we can fund my favorite project. Usually those tax provisions that they're pointing to, I mean, and the loophole is such a terrible word, right? I mean, it is a word that it has this connotation of being something that's crooked, and maybe it was stuck in the code intentionally to give somebody a sneaky, underhanded benefit, or it maybe a little more innocently, it had a good intention, but someone is totally abusing it right at this point. That's a loophole. Well, usually the tax code provisions that get pointed to when people are claiming that it's the L word is really just something that was put in there for an honest-to-God, legitimate purpose that has a good reason for it, and I just don't like that reason anymore, or I don't want to confess that I liked that reason. And the biggest, when you stack up, and the technical tax policy term for those provisions is a tax expenditure. This is tax dollars that the government could bring in, but instead of writing a check and spending it like a traditional expenditure, we call it a tax expenditure because we're just not collecting the money. Instead of collecting it and paying it back out, we're just foregoing the revenue to begin with. And a tax expenditure, one guy's tax expenditure is someone else's loophole. And again, just to warn you, the biggest tax expenditure in the entire state is the retirement income exemption. $2.3 billion of tax income that our state did not collect because we gave that retirement income exemption to everyone, no matter how much money you made, no matter how young you were. We've done some studies, and something like half of the people claiming that retirement exemption are under 60 years old. If my husband and I got hit by a truck tomorrow and our kids inherited our 401ks and started pulling money out of those 401ks, that's retirement income. So my 18-year-old daughter would have retirement income that she would not be paying income tax on. Now, the poor King, she's at Notre Dame, so she'd have to, I don't think, she could live without paying income taxes, I don't mind, but especially I got hit by a truck, so I guess I don't care at all, but there are some goofy quirks, and there are 2 other states that are that generous with retirees. Every other state in our country, except for I think Alabama and Mississippi, follow the federal treatment of retirement income. That is a very difficult issue to talk about politically, but it is something that we've started to hear a little bit of talk about. Is there a way to tax retirement income over $100,000 a year? If you're earning over $100,000 a year, maybe you could pay retirement. Maybe you could pay income tax on that. When that exemption was placed in the law, I think it was 30% of people over 65 are living in poverty in our state. That's not the case anymore. The poverty and age brackets have shifted a little bit. That's not to say that there aren't, you think about, the little old lady, you guys know, I don't need to tell you all this stuff. Let's move on. There's a corporate income tax section, or really a business tax section. One of the things that people talk about all the time is the corporate income tax equals the business tax. And that's not really actually the case. This chart looks at how many different taxes businesses pay. And sure, they pay corporate income tax, but I think that's like the 3rd biggest one. The biggest one they pay isn't that different from the total pies that we showed at the beginning. Property taxes. Property taxes is the #1 tax paid by businesses in Illinois. They also pay all kinds of other goofy taxes. They pay sales taxes. And a lot of businesses are actually sole proprietors or partnerships, and they pay individual income tax. They don't even pay corporate income tax. So that's what that is. There's a lot of data like that in this book. There's lots of little snippets. We try to present in a way that's as middle of the road as we can. We aren't trying to force you into one conclusion or another. We're just trying to set it out there. Like I said, trying not to dumb it down too bad, but also trying to make it interesting and in a way that you can look at and not have to spend the next 3 hours poring over a page to get it. So I hope it works for you. Linda was really excited about it when she saw it a couple of weeks ago, which is why you're getting stuck with it on your way home. Another thing about data, here's another one of my examples. So this picture shows some of our neighbors and our sales tax rates. And this is the rate when you go to the store and you buy something and you pay it, and they add sales tax onto it. In Illinois, the average rate is 8.19%. I don't think there's any place in the state where that's the actual rate. We have a huge variety. If you're in Chicago, it's pushing 10%, but it can be as low as 6.25%, depending on where you are. But on average, it comes out to 8.19%. And when you're just in Michigan, there is no local add-on, so it's always 6% no matter where you are. So different states do it differently. But in Illinois, we are at 8.19%, which puts us at 10th highest in the country in whatever year this was that they were doing. It says on there somewhere. So that's the, thank you. That's the rate, the stated rate. But then when you go 2 slides later, this is per capita sales tax collections. And remember, we were 10th highest in the country on rate, but look how much, Illinois is the blue purple line here, and the all-state average is the orange line. Look how much below the national average we are in actual collections. So our rates are high, 10th highest, but our collections are clearly well below the national average. And it's not because everyone's cheating, and it's not because of Amazon not collecting sales tax, especially because now they do. It's because, and I think you heard about this from Ralph, or probably heard about it from Ralph earlier today, our share of what we're subjecting to sales tax is shrinking. And that's what this chart shows. Over time, how much of the consumer economy is being taxed, and it's a smaller and smaller number over time as more and more of the economy in our state and our country is on services and electronic things that aren't currently subjected to our sales tax. One of the mantras of a good, you all heard this from Ralph, I bet, good taxes are broad-based and low rate. You don't want to say, should I get my hair permed at the salon or should I do it at home? And if it's a salon perm, I don't have to pay any sales tax, but if it's Ogilvy, I'm gonna have to. I mean, that the salon perm, no, it's Ogilvy decision should not be one that's driven by sales taxes. I mean, that, but you don't want ever for taxes to be what drives behavior. You want taxes to be neutral. The lower the rate, the more equally imposed they are, the better the tax is, the fairer it is, and hopefully the better the economy goes. I'm not saying no taxes, because we need roads and we need teachers and we need jails and we need all those sorts of things. I'm just saying once you've decided how much tax you want, broad base, and then as low a rate as possible. All right. There's more. Here's the sales tax L word. There are more of them. We lump them into categories here. And you can see the biggest category of sales tax expenditures, tax expenditures in the sales tax world, are ones that we call social policy. Things that we've said, we like churches, we like schools, we don't want to make them pay sales tax. Is that a loophole? Because Sister Margaret was able to buy crayons for her school and didn't have to pay sales tax? You know, is the Sister Margaret loophole? Maybe it is, and maybe we should be taxing her. But that's no more a loophole than, you know, it was done intentionally. There are corporate benefits. The economic development section of, you know, a big, huge whole 10% of the sales tax expenditures are things that maybe people tend to say and think about more when they use that L word. Those are enterprise zone exemptions and things like that. Although, again, they were all put in the code specifically designed. In addition to liking nuns, we like people to hire ex-felons. Or we like people to revamp a factory in a rundown neighborhood. There are lots of things that we want to encourage, and frequently, instead of just writing checks for people to do it, we give them tax breaks. And they decide over there in the Capitol that they want to give a new tax break, and sometimes they want to encourage behavior, and sometimes giving a tax break is the easiest way they can figure out, or the fastest way they can get the help to where they want to get it, and so they create a tax expenditure. Now, is that a loophole? Well, you know, 10 years or 20 years later, maybe it is. Maybe it's not necessary anymore, but that's the kind of thinking that drives those expenditures and the kind of stuff that we try to remind people. It's, you know, just because you don't like it and just because you want more revenue doesn't mean it's someone abusing the tax code. It doesn't mean it's someone sneaking something through. Have I used my 2 hours yet, or am I still have some time? All right. The last section we have is on property taxes. And again, this is the tax that pretty much everyone hates. And it's not just in Illinois. Terry and I were talking about it. Everyone hates property taxes. It's once a year you get a big bill. It's not withheld from your paycheck. Maybe it's withheld, added to your mortgage from paid your bank. But you see this big bill, even if you don't pay it, it comes to your house. And it's confusing, right? There's all these lines, and then there's this equalized assessed value that has nothing to do with what you know your house is worth, and then you know your neighbor is paying less, and they add it on the back of their house, and you're sure that didn't get added into the value. But then you gotta go hire a lawyer or someone to get it challenged. Everyone hates the property taxes. And then the school, they put a new, addition on the school, and I'm sure they paid too much for that too. Everyone hates property taxes. And in Illinois, it's true, our property taxes, in addition to, you saw that big pie piece, in Illinois, it's a bigger piece of our total tax burden. And in Illinois, our property taxes per capita are higher than the national average. Now, our home values are higher, at least in some parts of the state, than the national average too. So we looked at a different way and said, all right, effective rate. How much tax did you pay compared to how much is your house worth? And so let's say your house is worth $100 and you paid up $1 in tax, your effective rate was 1%. So this is taking a statewide average over a 5-year period and comparing us to the country, and we're third in the country, and you can see some of our neighbors are not too far behind us. Wisconsin is 5th and Michigan is 8th. But again, that's a statewide average of effective rate, which is, in this instance, that doesn't put us, the per capita is also pretty high, right? We're well ahead of the national average. So this is one where pretty much in property taxes, no matter how you slice or dice it, they're high in Illinois compared to the national average. Now, is that because the state has chosen not to fund the things and we've told the locals go ahead and fund it and we're not gonna, so you can, and so we've let the locals raise property taxes? Or is it vice versa, because the property taxes are so high the state has said, well, we can't raise the income tax? I don't know, and I'm not here to figure that out. But that's the statewide average. When, as I'm sure some of you know, you may have compared property values and property tax bills from location to location within our state. And so this takes that same effective rate concept and breaks it down county by county within the state, still taking a county average though, because anybody who's talked about Cook County property taxes recently knows Chicago's property taxes are some of the lowest in our state. They all hate property, just like everyone, they all complain about property taxes, but the truth be told, Richie Daley kept property taxes up there incredibly low and raised money other ways. And so property taxes in Chicago have been low, and they're some of the lowest in the state, but also in Cook County are the highest property taxes in the state. Some of those south suburbs just have nothing to tax anymore and huge obligations, and so their property taxes are incredibly high, which means that Cook County is kind of just a medium blue, even though, even when you're comparing, just like I said, you compare state to state, you gotta think about where in the state am I, right? I mean, if you're comparing Iowa to Illinois, you don't really need to compare my home county and Moultrie County, because that's way the heck away from Iowa. What you think more about it, you're thinking about Joe Davies County, you're thinking one of the counties right across the river from Iowa, and that's a very different thing potentially than the national average. But even within the county, you have to think about it too. So that's another one of the frustrating things we have. Taxes are complicated, and these simple soundbite kind of things that people say, sometimes, I mean, you can't help it, right? You're all already bored, and I've only been here for 2 hours. But it just, I mean, if you really dive deep, you can't convey it in a way that people are willing to listen. But taxes are complicated. All right, that's it of my prepared stuff. My contact information is there. You'll also, when you get the book, I think you'll have our website and stuff. The entire booklet is also on our website, so if you ever wanted to, you can download the PDF and you can take pictures from that and use with it however you want. I think Linda thought we could take some questions or not? If you guys want, if you want to talk about taxes. Yes. I see one right there. I see lots, actually. Go ahead.
We seem to have so many agencies that deal with taxes in such effective ways. They have so much information. Why in the world does nobody take advantage of it in this state that's still so corrupt and backwards?
We were talking about that. What is it about it? It must be something in the water. And there is a page in our book, I don't have it up here, that talks about how many local jurisdictions we have in our state. And we're number one. Yay us. There is no other state in the country that has as many local taxing jurisdictions as Illinois. And on the one hand, that's great, right? I live in Downers Grove, and I know exactly who's on the Park District. because, it's especially good when we're my small hometown, and you know exactly who's on the school district, and you know who they are, and they are responsive because they report to you, and they know who you are, and you have direct control, and they have to be responsive and flexible and respect the wishes of the locals. The problem is, and I see it where I live now, in our same town, we have the village, and we have the park district, and we have the school district, and we have the police district, and we have the fire, and we have the sanitation, and then there's the township, and then there's the grade school, and then there's a high school because it's not a unit, there's two different ones. And at some point, your eyes glaze over and nobody pays attention. And I think that's kind of what ends up happening. I don't know what the right balance is. Virginia, so we have, I think it's pushing 6,000 different local units of government in our state that can impose property taxes. That's just the ones who can impose property taxes. There's a lot that can't. If you count the others, it's about 2,000 more that don't impose property taxes. Virginia, which is a state like ours, they have a lot of people, they have a big geographic dispersion, they have they have cities around a couple of metropolitan areas, they have lots of rural stuff. They have 519 local governments. I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily the right answer, and I don't know how you get there, because how do you tell your park district, you've got to merge with the library district, and you have to fight with them over, is it books or trees this year, because we can't have both a new soccer field and the new version of the Harry Potter books. We're just not getting both. That's I don't know the answer. I can talk a lot about the problem. I can't answer the question though. Someone else had a question. Go ahead.
One of the things you didn't talk about is the use of taxes to change behavior of individuals. An example of that is a tobacco tax. Illinois has a fairly high tobacco tax. For reasons that are clear to me, Missouri has a really low tax. And with that comes all the problems of high levels of tobacco consumption.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment on that?
Well, it also...
There are certain things, there's a point at which behavior decreases in ways
No,
that benefits the entire population.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you do use, we do that with the sin taxes. People get starry-eyed and think that, sin taxes will raise a ton of money. They frequently don't, because you raise them high enough, they actually have the intended effect of decreasing the usage. One good thing that they also do is allow drug dealers who used to deal in illegal drugs to start smuggling cigarettes instead of pot and heroin, because it's just as lucrative, because you can buy it so much cheaper in Missouri and bring it into Illinois. I was at a conference, I don't know, a month or so ago in Chicago, put on by the Federal Reserve Bank, talking about sin taxes, and they had someone from the Illinois Department of Revenue, and he had all these fabulous pictures of people driving minivans, and they'd go into Missouri and they'd buy, a trunk load of cigarettes, and then they'd just head up north to turn around and sell them. And that's a problem too, when you have a state to state to state, and the sellers in Missouri didn't care because they were making a boatload of money and they weren't doing anything illegal. But it's I don't know how, it's hard.
But it has impacted smoking in Illinois.
Yes. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And taxes have been used since the beginning of time to encourage things. The income tax deduction for home mortgages, right? We pay, if you buy a home and you can deduct on your federal income tax the interest you pay on your mortgage, that was designed to encourage home ownership. Through the tax code. We use tax for social engineering all the time. Did you have a question? Somebody was raising their hand.
I was curious. Mr. Martire said that he believed that if you raise taxes, it would really solve a lot of problems in this state, and if we made them more equitable as well. What's your position on that?
We're pretty agnostic on total amount. The decision of how much our state should spend. And should we spend it on these 5 programs or just these 4 programs? And should we increase the spending on these programs or decrease them? Our organization just simply doesn't have the expertise in there. Ralph spends a lot more time on education and on that area especially. So we stay out of that political policy spending side. But we do weigh in heavily on once you've decided we need $10 or we need $10,000, and you've decided we push hard for do it fairly, do it equitably, don't tax the home perm but not the salon perm, tax them both the same. If you and I own the same house next to each other, we should be paying the same property taxes. that kind of stuff is where we get push hard and are 100% aligned with Ralph. Their organization has spent a lot more time on the spending side of the equation, and he has never said anything that I can say is wrong or that I disagree with. I just don't know enough to be able to say we don't have a position. That's just not our area. So that's a non-answer. I'm really good at these non-answers. Anybody else want to? Yes, sir.
Maybe another one for you to not answer.
Oh, good.
One of the things that it seems to me, I know you're not trying to bias this in any way, but if you look at the one chart that you had over there showing that, gosh, Illinois, is their individual income tax collection that we're less than all the other states, and gosh, now we've jumped to
Yep.
right. That was when our income tax added 3% of what was we added on there. What you don't have on there, though, you're saying that's the individual. Where do we average in terms of our earnings compared with all other states?
Right. See that you're exactly right. That's a per person. And that's not a wealth-based one.
I suspect I earn more than I would if I lived in Alabama.
Exactly. And that's one of the problems with these kinds of charts is you've got to be thinking what and I think in our book we do have, well, no, the group that put this out is way into per capita stuff, and they don't use the GDP based. Our organization has a chart that we do it, income taxes as a function of the state's GDP. So that would then say, how much do we tax our people compared to how wealthy is our state overall? I mean, it's still an average, right? And if you live in different places, maybe dollars are different. And there, Illinois was way below the national average back in the day because we're a fairly wealthy state, yet our taxes are fairly low. Income taxes were fairly low. When we bumped them up, we were, when the rate came up, as a function of state GDP number, we were pretty much right at the national average. Property taxes are way up, even as a state GDP number as opposed to per capita. Sales taxes were below because the collections are low. But you're exactly right, and that's exactly the kind of thing that you can slice and dice at 10,000. We could make 1,000 charts like this, and each one would be a little bit different because it depends on what direction you're looking at it. And it's hard because, yeah, if I wanted to argue our income taxes are high, this is the perfect picture to show. If you want to say our income, what's that?
The governor won't like that.
Right, exactly. But if I want to say our income taxes aren't all that high at all, then I would use the GDP one rather than the per capita one. That's one of the frustrations that you have with numbers, or a good thing about numbers, depending. Back there in the blue.
It may not be so much an issue of how the taxes are. It may be an issue of where you live. If you have to live up in the Chicagoland area, you can see that you are spending more money for everything in something like the southern part of the state. So if you raise income taxes on the southern part of the state, they're going to have to pay more. But the people in Chicago and the Chicago area who are already paying more for everything are going to be paying a lot more. Now, but I would suggest everybody living up in that area to stop. And I'll say this, if you live in Illinois and they tax your retirement, there are other states you can move to, and they can tax your retirement and you'll still be paying.
Well, because of the property taxes and other things. So it is.
It's a 10% difference in what we pay up in that area and what you can pay in other states and probably downstate too. So you move downstate or you move someplace else and you can increase your income.
It is. There are so many factors at play. And that's another problem with this, right? You look at one particular factoid. Way in the back, and then I got you.
Yes. If you're going to move south, bring your money with us because we need it down there. Being from Southern Illinois, one of the big problems that we have are multiple taxing bodies such as schools and so on, just like you described. Do you or your organization have any policy or study on consolidation, especially of school districts that will have maybe fewer than 100 students in them?
It is a huge issue and one that's been around in our state forever. I mean, Linda mentioned my grandfather. He was on a panel that worked on consolidating schools from one-room schoolhouses to instead of K through 8 in this school, now we're just going to have K through 4 in this one, and then we can move the kids to cross the other township, and then now they're in 5th through 8 before. It's been an issue since the beginning of time. I mean, I was a high school graduating class of '85, and it is such an emotional issue for people to talk about consolidating their schools, because that, you feel like you're losing your community, and it is really hard to do. But to answer your question, yes. Where I live in DuPage County, they've been talking about that. Believe it or not, they discovered within DuPage County, there are 22 different government units charged with mosquito abatement. After the West Nile virus outbreak, it was a big deal of spraying for mosquitoes. I mean, there have always been some of it going on, but it became a big deal up there, especially after that. There are 22 different jurisdictions, or maybe it's 27, and of the 27, 22 of them contracted with the same outside provider. They didn't have their own trucks, their own employees do it. They contracted with the same outside provider separately. So there were 22 different contracts with the same provider to do the same thing. So you're doing our township on Monday and the other township on Tuesday. So he's driving down the same street, spraying this side of the street Monday and this side of the street Tuesday, because they contracted independently. So DuPage County has, for the last couple of years, been working on trying to come up with efficiencies, maybe not even forcing consolidation, just saying, hey, if you consolidate your back room, you have one HR person instead of 2. When your tech guy retires next year, use ours. Our 911 center has extra capacity, yours is falling apart. Pay us half of what you pay for yours and we can cover you. That kind of stuff, they're finding saves as much money as actually forcing the consolidations, and creates a lot fewer hackles and emotional responses. And in fact, the DuPage County chairman is a man named Dan Cronin, and he's pairing up with a group in the city of Chicago called the Metropolitan Planning Council, and they've started this kind of loose coalition of groups, and we're part of it, called Transform Illinois. And they're looking at trying to come up with ways to encourage increased efficiency, not necessarily, improving services. I mean, maybe not even lowering, definitely not trying to reduce the services provided, but just trying to come up with better ways to do it, or maybe even provide more services for the same dollars. The problem is it's a one-size-fits-all solution, just doesn't work. We may have bazillions of different government units, but in some places a township is a fabulous unit of government. It does a great service. Up in the Chicagoland area, we've got a number of situations where the township and the village, or the town, are exactly the same, yet they both exist. And I mean, the city of Evanston had to get an act of Congress, an act of the legislature, to allow them to merge the township and the city together, even though they were there was not a square inch of land that was not in both of them, or neither. Their boundaries were exactly the same, yet they had to do things that duplicated, because the way the township laws and the city laws were. And in order to merge, their senators, Dan Biss, had to go in here and get a law allowing it. But other townships were so nervous they would be merged out of existence that the law that they passed applies only to that one particular township. A township that starts with E and ends in N and has on the lake and has a Northwestern University in it or something. It's that kind of you can't have a specifically law naming the town. It has to be that kind of goofy thing. But that's a really difficult pickle. The Illinois Farm Bureau is really concerned about that, because the rural areas see it a lot sometimes, the frustration over the waste, sometimes the difficulty in getting people to serve on the boards and things of these government units, yet the need for them to do things, and where do you get the firemen when it's out, all these kinds of problems. It's hard. It's really hard. You had a question.
Is there a complementary study plan for the role of gambling, lotteries, casinos in the generation of income for the state, or is there going to be a gamblers federation?
No. There may be, but I'm not part of it. That's an area that is a world unto itself, and is always, they bring in a lot of revenue. It's always a topic of conversation over in the Capitol of, do we need another casino? Do we allow video gaming in bars? Blah, blah, blah. there's always this belief that we'll raise more taxes, right? We'll just have more gaming, more slots and more pubs, and we'll make more tax dollars. Add another casino, we'll make more tax dollars. I think they're finding that the state's pretty close to saturated. And if you build another casino here, more people aren't going to gamble and we aren't going to get more revenue. We're just going to draw them from over there. That's not entirely true, but I mean, I think they're starting to feel like we've just about hit that point. And that, you know, never mind the whole question of now do we have a bunch, you know, whole new society of gambling people with all the problems that that brings. But I stay away from that. I talk over there, and I think Linda wants me to be done.
Is graduated income tax rate going to be an option in Illinois?
It requires a constitutional amendment. So it would have to be, the legislature would have, with the House and the Senate would have to pass it by a 3/5 majority. The governor is irrelevant in this particular question, at least on a legal side.
What is it?
I'm sorry, the question was about a graduated income tax. Is that possible in Illinois? There were folks who were hoping to get it on the ballot last fall. It has to be in a general election ballot, so it can only be every 2 years. Illinois is one of the few states that does have only a flat rate income tax. Although when you look at many of the states that people boast about how many of them have graduated rates, you hit the top rate at about $20,000 a year of income. So, you know, guess what? You know, you all are the high income earners. If you move to Georgia, you're in the top rate. Way to go. There are a number of states where they do have brackets, and so people point to them as being graduated income states, or rate states. But in reality, people who earn less than that shouldn't be paying any income tax at all. So these are just states that don't have a good personal deduction or personal standard exemption, really. It's the kind of thing that if it was done right, it wouldn't be the end of the world. On the other hand, there are a lot of people who are very worried that it wouldn't be done right, and we'd have this high rate, like, you know, California and New York both have really high rates at the upper ends, and my definition of high end and your definition of high end become very different, and I don't know whether it's got a legitimate chance or not. It depends on how things go, I think, maybe for the next couple of years. Okay.
Would it not also to tax retirement income take a constitutional amendment and therefore, no?
No, if we taxed all retirement income, that's not in the Constitution, that's just in the statute. There's been some talk about if you only taxed retirement income over $50,000 or something and you exempted retirement income below that, have you created in effect a graduated rate because your effective rate differs depends on how much you make. If that's an issue, we've had that issue forever because we already have those standard deductions. The first 2 or 4 or 6,000 you make per person is exempt. So those people pay zero, and people who make more than that pay more than zero. So we already have a graduated rate if you're going to get hyper technical like that. But it wouldn't. The exemption itself is just in the law, not in the Constitution. Want me to make it done? Yeah. All right. My 2 hours are up.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.